There is an old Hmong story, one that was passed down to me by an elder many years ago. Before he told me the story, he looked straight into my eyes. His face became unusually serious. Then, in almost a whisper, "Young man, never promise your heart to someone unless you truly mean it." I smiled a little. I thought he was simply giving me another lesson about love. But then he slowly shook his head, leaning closer, close enough that I could hear every breath he took. Because sometimes a promise doesn't end when life does. Even today, those words still send chills down my spine. Now, whether you believe this story really happened or whether you believe it's simply an old warning passed down by our ancestors, I'll let you decide. But I can promise you one thing. After hearing it, I never looked at love the same way again. This happened many generations ago, back in Laos, long before there were paved roads, long before there were telephones, back when traveling from one village to another meant walking through miles and miles of dense wilderness. The forests back then were different, older, darker, much darker. The trees were so tall, their branches blocked most of the sunlight. Even in the middle of the afternoon, the jungle looked as though evening had already arrived. The elders believed those mountains were never truly empty. Some spirits protected travelers, others waiting for someone who wandered too far from home. In one small mountain village lived a young woman named Mai. Mai wasn't the daughter of a chief. She wasn't wealthy. She owned no gold, no silver, no fine clothing, but everyone knew her name. Because wherever Mai went, kindness followed. She rose before sunrise every morning, helped her parents in the rice fields, collected water from the stream, gathered firewood, cooked meals, and whenever an elderly neighbor needed help, she was always the first one there. People often smiled and said, "Whoever marries Mai will receive a blessing from the ancestors." But fate can be cruel. Several mountains away, in another village, lived a young man named Tu. Tu was respected, strong, hard-working, the kind of young man every father trusted. He hunted with the older men, worked beside his father, and dreamed that one day he would build a family of his own. No one, not even Tu himself, could have imagined that one choice, one broken promise would destroy two lives and awaken something that refused to stay buried. One warm afternoon, Tu entered the mountains alone. He was hunting deer. At first, everything felt normal. Birds sang overhead. The wind rustled through the bamboo. The forest felt alive. But the farther he walked, the quieter everything became. One by one, the birds stopped singing. The insects fell silent. Even the wind seemed to disappear. Tu suddenly realized he couldn't hear anything. An uneasy feeling settled over him. He looked around. Every tree looked exactly the same. He had become lost. Trying to find his way, he climbed a rocky hillside. When he reached the top, he froze. Far below, smoke curled into the sky. A village, one he had never seen before. Relieved, he smiled. Finally, someone could help him find his way home. He had absolutely no idea that by taking just one more step toward that village, he was walking toward the beginning of the most terrifying chapter of his life.
To made his way down the hillside toward the village. With every step, the sounds of life slowly returned. Birds began singing again. Children laughed in the distance. Smoke drifted gently from cooking fires. It was as though the forest itself had released him. As he reached the edge of the village, several elders noticed the young stranger. One of them smiled warmly. "Young man, you look tired. Come, share a meal with us before you continue your journey." That was the Hmong way. A stranger was first offered food food before being asked any questions. To bowed respectfully and gladly accepted. While everyone sat together eating, he noticed someone walking toward the village well. She carried 2 wooden buckets balanced across her shoulders. Her movements were graceful, quiet, almost effortless. The afternoon sunlight caught her face, and for a brief moment, everything around him seemed to disappear. It was Mai. She looked up. Their eyes met. Neither one said a word, but both smiled. The kind of smile that appears before your heart even realizes it. Later that afternoon, To found himself inventing reasons to remain in the village. He helped repair a broken fence. He carried bundles of firewood. He even offered to help harvest vegetables, though he had planned to leave hours earlier. Truth be told, he simply wanted another chance to speak with Mai. As evening approached, he finally gathered enough courage. Walking beside her as she returned home, he introduced himself. "My name is To." Mai smiled politely. "My name is Mai." Their conversation began with simple questions. "Where are you from? How far is your village? Do you hunt often?" Simple questions soon became laughter. Laughter became stories. Stories became hours. Before either of them realized it, the moon had already risen high above the mountains. To returned home the next morning, but something had changed. During the long walk back, he wasn't thinking about the hunt. He wasn't thinking about his family. He wasn't even thinking about the long journey. He was thinking about Mai, her smile, her laugh, the kindness in her eyes. Only 4 days later, he made the journey again, then again, the following week, then again. Soon, the villagers began teasing Mai whenever To arrived. "There comes your hunter." Mai would blush, lower her head, pretending not to hear. But secretly, she waited for those visits more than anyone. The seasons slowly changed. The rice fields turned green, then golden. To and Mai spent every chance they had together, walking through the bamboo forests, fishing beside quiet streams, watching fireflies dance across the fields after sunset. Some nights, they simply sat together beneath the stars, saying nothing at all, because sometimes silence says everything. One evening, the village celebrated after the harvest. Families gathered around large fires. Children played games. Young women sang traditional songs. Later that night, To gently took Mai's hand. Without saying a word, the two quietly slipped away from the celebration. They climbed a small hill overlooking the village. Below them, hundreds of tiny lanterns flickered like stars upon the earth. Above them, the full moon illuminated the mountains. To turned toward Mai. For the first time, his voice trembled. "I don't want to leave anymore. I wish I lived here." Mai looked down shyly, then whispered, "I wish you did too." To reached for both of her hands. Holding them tightly, he looked directly into her eyes. "Mai, I swear before heaven, I swear before our ancestors, no matter what happens, no matter where life takes us, whether in this world or even after death, you will always be my wife." Mai's eyes filled with tears. She smiled through them, then quietly answered, "And you will always be my husband. Even if death separates us, I will never leave you." The wind suddenly swept across the hill. The fire below flickered violently. Somewhere deep within the dark forest, a lone owl cried. Once, then twice, then silence. The elders used to say, "Never make a promise beneath a full moon unless your heart truly means every word." Because the ancestors are listening. Neither Tu nor Mai realized someone else had heard that promise too. After that night, everything changed. Tu no longer came to Mai's village as a visitor. He came as someone who already felt he belonged there. The villagers welcomed him warmly. Mai's parents smiled whenever they saw him walking up the village path. Even the elders began whispering, "Perhaps we'll hear wedding drums before the next harvest." Tu worked beside Mai's father in the rice fields. He helped repair roofs damaged by storms. He hunted wild game for the village. Every act made everyone believe his intentions were honorable. As the months passed, the love between Tu and Mai grew deeper. No longer was it the excitement of young romance. It became trust, hope, a future. One evening, rain fell softly across the mountains. The village had already gone to sleep.
Only the sound of frogs and the steady rain could be heard. Tu quietly walked to Mai's family's home. Mai stepped outside to meet him beneath the shelter of a large tree. Neither of them spoke for several moments. They simply stood together, listening to the rain. Tu gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. "I've never loved anyone the way I love you." Mai smiled. "I know. I've known for a long time." That night, believing they would soon become husband and wife, Mai gave Tu everything. Not because he demanded it, not because she was forced, but because she trusted him completely. She believed his promise. She believed his heart. She believed the future they had dreamed about together. Before dawn, Tu held her tightly. "I'll return after I speak with my parents. I'll ask them to prepare the wedding. It won't be long." Mai rested her head against his shoulder. "I'll wait. No matter how long it takes, I'll wait." At sunrise, Tu began the long journey home. Mai stood at the edge of the village, watching him disappear into the forest. She continued watching, long after he could no longer be seen. Every morning after that, she found herself looking toward the same trail, smiling whenever she imagined seeing him again. Days passed, then another week. She wasn't worried. The journey between villages was long. Perhaps he had simply been delayed. But in Tu's village, something unexpected happened. Not long after returning home, his parents introduced him to the daughter of a respected family. She was hardworking. Her family owned fertile land. The marriage would strengthen both families. At first, Tu refused. His thoughts were still with Mai. He remembered her smile, her kindness, the promises they had made beneath the full moon. But as the days turned into weeks, his parents continued to pressure him. Friends reminded him that marrying within nearby villages would make life easier. There would be no dangerous journeys, no difficult travels through the mountains, no need to leave his aging parents behind. Little by little, the memories of Mai began to fade. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because Tu chose convenience over love. Eventually, he stopped making plans to visit. Then, he stopped talking about her altogether. Soon, he convinced himself, perhaps it would be kinder if he simply disappeared from her life. Without saying goodbye, without sending a single message, Tu accepted the engagement. The wedding preparations quietly began. Meanwhile, many mountains away, Mai continued waiting. Every sound coming from the forest made her heart race. Every traveler entering the village caused her to look up with hope. Every sunset, she whispered to herself, "He'll come tomorrow." Tomorrow became another tomorrow, and another, and another. One afternoon, Mai finally admitted something to herself. Something she had been afraid to believe. Tu wasn't coming back. Still, she refused to give up. She asked travelers heading toward Tu's village to carry a message. Just a simple message. "Please tell Tu, Mai is waiting." The travelers returned several days later. One of them lowered his eyes before speaking. "We delivered your message." He heard it, but he walked away. Mai said nothing. She simply nodded. But inside, something had begun to break. After that day, Mai changed. Not all at once, but little by little. The cheerful young woman everyone once knew began to disappear. She no longer laughed with the other girls while gathering water. She no longer sang while working in the rice fields. Even her parents noticed she had become quiet, far too quiet. Many nights, her mother would wake up and see a faint light coming from Mai's room. She wasn't asleep. She was sitting by the window, looking toward the narrow mountain trail. The same trail Tu had walked so many times before. She still believed. One morning, he would come back. Weeks became months. The rainy season slowly gave way to clear skies. Still, Tu never came. Then one morning, Mai became suddenly ill. She could barely eat. Certain smells made her sick. She grew weaker with each passing day. Her mother thought perhaps she had caught a fever. The village healer was called. He checked her pulse, asked her several quiet questions. Then, his face slowly changed. He looked toward Mai, then toward her parents. The room became completely silent. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "She is carrying a child." The room felt as though it had stopped breathing. Mai slowly lowered her head. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She already knew. She had known for several days. But hearing someone else say the words aloud made it real. Her father stumbled backward. Her mother covered her mouth, trying desperately not to cry. In those days, among the Hmong, an unmarried woman carrying a child faced tremendous shame. It wasn't only about the couple. It affected the entire family. Neighbors would whisper. Children would ask questions. Families carried that burden for generations. But even then, Mai never blamed her parents. She blamed no one, except herself, for believing a promise that now felt so far away. Still, she refused to give up hope. There must be some mistake. Maybe Tu never received my messages. So she wrote another one. This time, she poured every piece of her heart onto that paper. She told him she was carrying his child. She begged him to return, not for her, but for the baby. She ended the letter with only one sentence. "You promised me, even after death." A trusted traveler carried the message across the mountains. Several days later, he finally reached Tu's village. Tu accepted the letter. He looked at the handwriting. He knew immediately it was from Mai. For a long moment, he simply stared at it. Then, without opening it, he tossed it into the fire. The traveler couldn't believe what he had just seen. "You aren't even going to read it?" Tu looked away. His voice was cold. "My life is here now. Tell her to forget me." The traveler said nothing. He simply turned and began the long walk back. When he arrived at Mai's village, she was already waiting, standing beside the entrance, searching every face, looking for hope. The traveler couldn't meet her eyes. He slowly shook his head. He wouldn't come. Mai's lips trembled. Did he read my letter? The traveler remained silent. That silence was answer enough. Mai nodded once, quietly thanked him, turned around, and walked away. No one knew where she went. Not her parents, not her friends, not even the children who usually saw everything happening in the village. That evening, as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, a thick fog rolled through the valley. The village dogs, who normally barked at strangers, suddenly began whining. Some hid beneath the houses. Others stared silently toward the forest, as though watching someone standing just beyond the trees. The elders would later say, animals often see what human eyes cannot.
Night slowly settled over the mountains. A cold wind drifted through the bamboo. It wasn't the kind of wind that cooled your skin. It was the kind that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Inside their home, Mai's parents believed she had already gone to bed. No one noticed she had quietly slipped outside. She walked alone, past the last house in the village, past the rice fields, past the stream where she and To had once laughed together. Every place she passed held a memory. Every memory felt like another knife through her heart. She remembered the first day they met. She remembered the nights beneath the stars. She remembered every promise, every smile, every embrace. And then she remembered the last time she watched him disappear down the mountain trail. She had smiled, certain he would return. She never imagined that would be the last time she would ever see him alive. Eventually, Mai reached the top of a quiet hill overlooking the valley. There stood an old tree, its branches twisted toward the sky like skeletal hands. The elders rarely came here after sunset. They believed wandering spirits rested beneath its roots. Mai slowly sat beneath the tree. She looked toward the moon. Tears streamed down her face. To, why?
I gave you everything. My heart, my future, our child. She gently placed both hands upon her stomach. For several moments, she simply cried. Not loudly, not violently, just the quiet tears of someone whose heart had completely broken. Then she whispered the words that no parent should ever hear from their child. If I cannot live with you, perhaps I can find you after death. The wind suddenly stopped completely. The leaves no longer moved. Even the crickets fell silent. Far below, several village dogs began barking wildly, one after another. Then, just as suddenly, they all stopped. The next morning, Mai's mother prepared breakfast. She called for her daughter. No answer. She searched the house. Nothing. She searched the nearby fields. Nothing. Soon, the entire village joined the search. Hours later, one of the hunters came running back. His face had turned pale. He couldn't even speak. He simply pointed toward the hill. The villagers followed him. As they reached the old tree, many immediately lowered their eyes. Some began crying. Others quietly turned away. Mai hung motionless beneath the branches. Her long black hair swayed gently in the morning breeze. Her face looked strangely peaceful, as though all of her pain had finally ended. Her mother collapsed to the ground. Her father's cries echoed across the valley. Even the oldest men in the village were seen wiping tears from their faces. The elders carefully brought Mai home. The funeral preparations began immediately. In Hmong tradition, the family believed the soul must be guided carefully so it would find its ancestors and not become lost between the worlds of the living and the dead. A village's elder arrived before sunset. As soon as he entered the house, he suddenly stopped walking. His eyes fixed on Mai's body. His expression changed. Very slowly, he looked toward her parents, then quietly said, "There is another soul with her." Everyone in the room looked at one another. No one understood what he meant. The elder closed his eyes. He listened as though someone was whispering beside him. The child never left her. A chill spread through the room. Some of the older women immediately began praying. Others quietly stepped outside. The elder completed every ritual exactly as tradition required, every offering, every prayer. Before leaving, he spoke one final warning. His voice was calm but heavy. If the promises spoken beneath heaven were true, if her heart still clings to this world, she may not walk the road to the ancestors. She may instead go searching for the one who abandoned her.
Several mountains away, life continued as though nothing had happened. To never learned about Mai's death. Preparations for his own wedding quietly moved forward. His parents smiled again. Neighbors congratulated him. Friends joked that soon he would finally have a family of his own. Whenever someone mentioned traveling toward Mai's village, To simply changed the subject. He buried every memory deep inside himself, or at least he tried to. The harvest season soon arrived. Like many farmers, To spent several nights sleeping alone in a small field hut. It was nothing more than a simple shelter built from bamboo and wood, just enough to protect him from the rain and to keep wild animals away from the crops. The first night, everything seemed perfectly normal. The moon was bright. The fields swayed gently in the cool breeze. Crickets sang throughout the valley. To finished his meal, laid down, and slowly drifted to sleep. Then someone called his name. To. He opened his eyes. For a moment, he thought he was still dreaming. Standing just outside the doorway was Mai. She looked exactly as he remembered. The same long black hair, the same gentle smile, the same traditional clothing she always wore whenever he visited her village. To sat upright. Mai? How did you find me? She smiled softly. I've been looking for you. I finally found you. To's heart filled with relief. He had spent months convincing himself he had done the right thing. Yet the moment he saw her, every buried memory returned. The laughter, the promises, the nights beneath the full moon. He expected anger. He expected tears. Instead, Mai simply smiled. I missed you. To lowered his head. I'm sorry. I should have come back. Mai gently stepped inside the hut. I know, but I'm here now.
They talked for hours, as though nothing had ever happened. They laughed about old memories. They spoke about the mountains, the rivers, the village festivals. For a little while, it felt as though time itself had turned backward. Just before dawn, Mai suddenly stood. I have to leave. Toe looked outside. The sun isn't even up yet. Stay a little longer. She slowly shook her head. I can't. I have to go before morning. Before Toe could ask why, she quietly stepped outside. A thin layer of mist covered the fields. Within only a few moments, she disappeared into the fog. Toe hurried outside. There was no one, not a single person, only empty fields stretching in every direction. He searched the ground. The soil was still damp from the night's dew. His own footprints were clearly visible, but where Mai had walked, there were none. Toe frowned. Perhaps the morning light had hidden them. That had to be it. The following night, she returned. Again, just after darkness fell. Again, they spent the entire night talking together. And once again, just before sunrise, she quietly left. Night after night, the same thing happened. Toe stopped questioning it. Instead, he found himself waiting for sunset, waiting for Mai. But there were little things, small things he couldn't quite explain. She never ate, not once. Even when he offered her fresh rice or roasted meat, she would only smile and politely refuse. Whenever he accidentally reached for her hand, it felt strangely cold. Not cool from the mountain air, but cold, like water drawn from a deep cave. And every night, no matter how happy she seemed, whenever the first rooster crowed in the distance, her smile slowly faded. She would quietly whisper, I have to go. Toe watched her disappear into the darkness, completely unaware that someone else had already begun watching him.
The strange visits continued, night after night after night. Toe found himself rushing through his work each day, not because he wanted to finish early, but because he couldn't wait for the sun to disappear. As darkness settled over the fields, he would light a small oil lamp inside the hut. Then he would wait. Almost every night, at exactly the same time, there would come 3 soft knocks. Tock, tock, tock. Toe would open the door, and there she stood, Mai, smiling, as beautiful as the day they first met. Not a strand of hair out of place, not a wrinkle in her clothes, not a trace of sadness on her face. At first, to believe fate had somehow given them a second chance. He even began imagining that perhaps, once the harvest was over, he would finally bring Mai home. Perhaps they could still begin the life they had once dreamed about. But little things began to trouble him. One evening, heavy rain poured across the valley. The ground turned into thick mud. The narrow trail leading to his hut became almost impossible to walk. Toe thought to himself, surely she won't come tonight. Then 3 knocks. Tock, tock, tock. He opened the door. There she was, standing in the pouring rain. Her clothes were completely dry. Not a single drop of water touched her. Toe stared for several seconds. Mai simply smiled. Aren't you going to invite me in? Toe forced a smile. Of course. Later that night, while Mai was looking away, Toe quietly glanced toward the doorway. Rain still pounded against the roof. Water flowed beneath the entrance. He looked down, searching for muddy footprints. There weren't any. None. It was as though she had never walked there at all. Another night, he reached across the table and accidentally touched her hand. He immediately pulled his own hand back. It wasn't simply cold, it was freezing, like touching stone during winter. Mai slowly looked at him, then smiled. Is something wrong? Toe hesitated. No, I just thought your hands were cold.
She quietly lowered her eyes, then softly answered, "I've been cold for a very long time." For reasons he couldn't explain, those words stayed with him. Another week passed. To notice something else, every single night, Mai wore the exact same clothing, the same blue embroidered skirt, the same black jacket, the same silver necklace. Never once did she wear anything different. He finally asked her, "Don't you have other clothes?" Mai looked down at herself, almost confused, then smiled. "This was the last outfit you ever saw me wearing." To laugh nervously, thinking she was joking, but she didn't laugh with him. Then came the night that truly frightened him. They were sitting quietly together, talking about old memories. Without thinking, To asked, "How are your parents?" My smile slowly disappeared. She stared into the small oil lamp, without blinking, without moving. When she finally answered, her voice sounded different, far away, almost like an echo. "They cry every day." To frowned. "What do you mean?" Mai slowly turned toward him. There were tears in her eyes. "They miss me very much." Before Tu could ask another question, the first rooster crowed somewhere in the distance. Mai immediately stood. "I have to go." Tu grabbed her wrist. "Mai, wait. Something isn't right." For the first time, she looked afraid, not of him, but of something outside. "They're waiting." "Who?" Mai slowly pulled her hand free. Her eyes remained fixed on the darkness beyond the doorway. Then, almost too quietly to hear, she whispered, "The ones who are supposed to guide me home." She stepped outside. The fog swallowed her within seconds. Tu stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move, unable to breathe, watching the empty darkness until the sun finally rose. He still didn't understand that the truth was already walking toward him, and before long, someone from Mai's village would tell him what should have been impossible. Several days later, To left his farm before sunrise. He loaded baskets of vegetables onto his back, planning to trade them at the nearest market. It was a journey he had made many times before. The mountain trail was busy that morning. Families carried woven baskets. Hunters returned with game. Children laughed as they chased one another down the path. For the first time in weeks, To felt almost normal. As he entered the marketplace, he noticed a group of familiar faces. They were villagers from Mai's village. To smiled, his heart filled with excitement. Perfect, he thought. They'll tell me how she's been. He walked toward them. One of the older men recognized him immediately. His smile disappeared. The others slowly fell silent. To frowned. How is everyone? How are Mai's parents? And how is Mai? No one answered. The villagers simply looked at one another. An elderly woman suddenly covered her mouth. Another man slowly lowered his head. Finally, one gray-haired elder stepped forward. His voice was quiet, almost trembling. "To, what are you saying?" To looked confused. "I asked, how is Mai? I've been seeing her almost every night. We've been together again." The elder's face turned completely pale. Several people instinctively stepped backward. One woman quietly began whispering prayers under her breath. The old man stared into To's eyes, then slowly asked, "To, have you lost your mind?" To laughed nervously. "What do you mean? I just saw her last night. She was with me until dawn." The old elder slowly removed the hat from his head. He held it against his chest. Then, in a voice filled with sorrow, he spoke words that froze To where he stood. "Mai died. She died almost 6 months ago." To didn't react. He simply stared, waiting for someone to laugh, waiting for someone to say it was a cruel joke. No one did. The elder continued, "She waited for you. She sent messages, many messages. You never came. When she discovered she was carrying your child, she begged you to return." To's breathing became shallow. No, that's impossible. I saw her. I held her hands. I talked to her. She smiled. She laughed. She was alive. The elder slowly shook his head. "No, To, you saw someone, but it wasn't the Mai we buried." The marketplace had become completely silent. Even the merchants nearby had stopped talking. Everyone was listening. The elder took one slow step closer. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. "When we buried Mai, the Chiv Neeb warned us. He said, if her promise remained unfinished, if her heart could not let go, she might not follow the ancestors. She might come back." To suddenly remembered the cold hands, the dry clothes during the storm, the missing footprints, the same clothing every night, her disappearing before sunrise, her strange words. "They're waiting. They cry every day. I've been cold." Every memory returned at once. His entire body began shaking. He stumbled backward. His basket slipped from his shoulders. Vegetables scattered across the dirt. He didn't even notice. No. He whispered over and over, "This can't be happening." The elder reached out, placing one hand gently on To's shoulder. "If what you've told us is true, you must never go back to that farm alone. Not after sunset." To slowly looked toward the distant mountains, toward the lonely little hut waiting beyond the fields. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about seeing Mai. He was terrified that she would be waiting for him. To stood frozen in the middle of the marketplace. His eyes remained fixed on the elder. His mind refused to accept what he had just heard. "Mai died?" He whispered the words, as though saying them aloud would somehow make them less real. The elder slowly nodded. "It has been nearly 6 months. We buried her with her child." The whole village mourned. To's knees nearly gave way. "No, you're lying. I've seen her every night. I've spoken with her. I've held her hand. She laughs. She smiles. She's alive." The elder closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his weathered face. "I wish that were true, but I carried her coffin. I watched her parents say goodbye. I threw the first handful of dirt onto her grave. There is no mistake." To's breathing became heavier. His chest tightened. Every strange thing he had ignored, every uneasy feeling, came rushing back all at once. The icy cold of her hands, her perfectly dry clothes during the rain, the missing footprints, the way she disappeared before sunrise, the sadness hidden behind every smile, her whisper, "I've been cold for a very long time." Then another memory struck him like lightning. Every single night, Mai had carried something beneath her shawl. At first, he thought it was simply the way the fabric folded. Sometimes, he thought she was holding a basket. Other times, he barely noticed it at all. Now, he realized she had never once arrived empty-handed. His voice trembled. "Elder, when you buried Mai, was she?" He couldn't finish the sentence. The elder lowered his head. "Yes, she was carrying your child." To felt the world spinning around him. His ears rang. The voices in the marketplace faded. Everything became distant. He remembered every message he had ignored, every excuse he had made, every promise he had broken. Then the elder asked a question, one that made To's blood run cold. "When she visited you, did you notice whether she was carrying anything?" To's eyes slowly widened. His lips began to tremble. He nodded. I thought it was only her shawl. I never looked closely." The elder took one slow step backward. His face had turned pale. "Our shaman warned us. If a mother's heart cannot rest, she will continue searching, not only for the man who betrayed her, but for the father of her child." a cold breeze swept through the marketplace. The bamboo wind chimes hanging from a nearby stall suddenly began ringing. No wind had been blowing only moments before. The elder looked toward the mountains, then quietly whispered, "You must not return to that farm. Whatever has been visiting you, it is no longer simply a memory." To wasted no time. He gathered his belongings and hurried home. Every step along the forest trail felt heavier than the last. This time, the mountain no longer felt peaceful. Every shadow between the trees looked like someone standing still, watching, waiting. Several times, he stopped walking, certain he had heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned. Nothing. Only the empty trail. Then, just as he started walking again, a familiar scent drifted through the air. The sweet fragrance of the wild mountain flowers Mai used to wear in her hair. To slowly looked over his shoulder. No one. Yet the scent lingered, following him all the way home. When he finally reached his village, he made one decision. No matter what happened, he would never spend another night in that lonely hut again. He believed if he stayed away, perhaps Mai would finally stop coming. He couldn't have been more wrong.
To never return to the farm. Not the next day, not the day after, not even a week later. The rice fields slowly became overgrown. The vegetables began to wither beneath the hot sun. Neighbors started asking questions. Why aren't you tending your crops? Are you sick? Has something happened? Tu simply smiled, or at least he tried to. I'm just tired. I'll go tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. As the days passed, something strange began happening. Tu's health started to fail. At first, it was only exhaustion. No matter how much he slept, he always woke feeling tired. Then, he began losing his appetite. His favorite meals remained untouched. His clothes slowly became loose. His face grew pale. His mother became frightened. "My son, what is happening to you? You've lost so much weight." Tu had no answer, because deep inside, he already knew. Every night, the dreams began. At first, they seemed almost peaceful. He would find himself standing beside the same stream where he first met Mai. She would smile, just as she always had. She would reach out her hand, and together, they would walk through the moonlit forest. But every dream ended the same way. Just before sunrise, Mai would stop walking. She would slowly turn toward him, then whisper, "Come home with me." Tu would wake suddenly, his entire body soaked in sweat, his heart pounding. The strange thing was that every morning his feet were covered in dried mud, as though he had actually been walking somewhere while asleep. His parents noticed it too. One morning, his father asked, "Son, why are your feet so dirty? Were you outside last night?" Tu looked down. His feet were covered in fresh dirt. Tiny blades of grass clung between his toes. He slowly shook his head. "I never left my bed." But even as he said the words, he wasn't certain. Night after night, the dreams became clearer. Mai no longer came alone. She was always carrying something close to her chest, wrapped carefully inside a faded blue cloth. Tu still couldn't see what it was. Every time he tried, the dream would end. Then, one night, everything changed. Tu found himself standing in a thick white mist. The forest around him had disappeared. There was no sound, no wind, no insects, only silence. Then, Mai slowly emerged from the fog. She smiled, the same gentle smile. But this time, there was sadness behind her eyes. "Tu, you've been avoiding me." His voice trembled. "Mai, are you?" He couldn't finish the question. She slowly shook her head. "I've been waiting for so long." Tu noticed the bundle she carried. For the first time, it moved, just slightly. His heart nearly stopped. "What are you holding?" Mai looked down lovingly. She slowly pulled back the cloth. Inside was a sleeping infant, tiny, peaceful, beautiful. Tu couldn't breathe. The baby had his eyes, his nose, his face. Tears immediately filled his eyes. Our child?" Mai gently nodded. "Our son. He has never met his father." Tu collapsed to his knees. He began sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know." Mai slowly reached out, placing one cold hand upon his cheek. Her voice remained calm, almost comforting. "You made a promise. You said nothing, not even death, would separate us." She looked into his eyes, then quietly added, "So come with me." Tu suddenly jolted awake. He was lying on the floor beside his bed. His bedroom door was standing wide open. The cold night wind drifted through the house. Outside, leading away from the doorway, were two sets of footprints. One
belonged to an adult. The other belonged to a very small child. Two stared into the darkness beyond his yard. For just a moment, he thought he saw two figures standing beneath the old tree at the edge of the village. A young mother holding a baby, waiting. Then they were gone. By morning, To could barely stand. His mother gasped the moment she saw him. His face had become thin. His eyes were deeply sunken. The healthy young man everyone once admired seemed to have aged years in only a few weeks. Word quickly spread throughout the village. Neighbors whispered, "Someone has placed a curse on him." Others quietly said, "No, his soul is being called away." His parents refused to sit and do nothing. They went to find the village shaman. He interrupted no one, not once. When To finally finished telling everything, from the day he met Mai, to the promise beneath the full moon, to the nightly visits, the shaman closed his eyes. The room fell completely silent. Several minutes passed. No one dared speak. Finally, the shaman slowly opened his eyes. His expression was heavy. "There is no curse. There is no evil spirit. This is something much older, much stronger. A promise." Everyone in the room looked at one another. The shaman continued, "When two hearts make a vow before heaven, and they truly believe every word, the ancestors bear witness. Those words carry weight." He looked directly at To. "You promised her that not even death would separate the two of you. You called upon heaven and your ancestors to hear your oath." To lowered his head. Tears silently rolled down his face. "I was young. I didn't think my words would matter." The shaman sighed. "Our words always matter, especially those spoken from the heart." The shaman prepared for a spiritual ceremony. He placed offerings upon a small wooden table. He lit incense. The sweet smoke slowly filled the room. The family stood quietly behind him. No one spoke. No one moved. The shaman began chanting. His voice echoed softly through the house. Minute after minute, the room grew colder. The incense smoke, instead of rising, began drifting toward the open doorway. The shaman suddenly stopped, his eyes fixed on the entrance. Very slowly, he stood, then bowed his head, as though someone was standing there, someone no one else could see. To followed his gaze. The doorway was empty, yet the room felt crowded, heavy, as if unseen eyes were watching everyone inside. Without taking his eyes from the doorway, the shaman quietly spoke. "Mai, if you are here, we acknowledge your sorrow. We acknowledge your suffering. We acknowledge the child you carried." The room became even colder. One of the oil lamps suddenly flickered, then went out. Another followed. Soon, only a single flame remained. To's mother began quietly crying. His father gripped his son's shoulder, trying to steady his own shaking hands. The shaman spoke again. "To has confessed his wrongdoing. He carries regret. If your heart still holds mercy, release him, so both of you may find peace." Nothing happened, only silence. Then, very softly, a woman's voice drifted through the room. Not angry, not screaming, only heartbroken. "He promised." Everyone heard it. To's mother looked toward the doorway. His father slowly stepped backward. The shaman closed his eyes. He whispered, "Yes, he did." Again, the voice came, a little louder this time. "He promised we would never be apart." Tears streamed down To's face. He fell to his knees. I'm sorry. I broke my word. I failed you. I failed our child. Please, forgive me. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then, the last remaining oil lamp extinguished itself. Darkness swallowed the room. When To's father rushed to relight the lamp, the room was warm again. The heavy feeling had disappeared. The incense smoke rose normally. The silence was gone. Everyone believed the spirit had finally left. The shaman, however, did not smile. He quietly looked at To, then slowly shook his head. No, he whispered. She isn't asking for revenge. She's asking for him. The shaman knew something. He wasn't ready to tell the family, because deep inside, he feared it was already too late.
The days that followed, To grew weaker. No medicine seemed to help. No herbal remedy eased his pain. No amount of sleep restored his strength. It was as though something unseen was slowly pulling the life from his body. His parents rarely left his side. His mother prepared every meal she could think of. His father searched neighboring villages, hoping another healer, another shaman, might know a way to save his son. Every answer was the same. They could help his body, but not his soul. To stopped leaving the house. He no longer spoke with friends. He no longer laughed. Most days, he simply stared out the window toward the mountains, toward the direction of Mai's village. Every evening, just before the sun disappeared, an overwhelming sadness settled over him. It was almost as if someone was calling his name, not with words, but with memories. Then, the dreams returned. Only now, they no longer felt like dreams. They felt real. To found himself standing beside the same old tree, the tree where Mai had taken her own life. Moonlight filtered through the branches. The air was perfectly still. There wasn't a single sound. Then, Mai stepped out from behind the tree. She was dressed in the same blue clothing. Her long hair gently moved, though there was no wind. She smiled, but her smile was filled with sorrow. This time, the child was awake. The little boy looked toward To with innocent eyes. He reached out, as though asking to be held. To slowly stepped forward. His hands trembled. "I'm your father," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. So sorry." Mai gently placed the child into To's arms. For the first time, he held his son. The baby looked up at him, then smiled. A tiny, beautiful smile. To broke down crying. He kissed the child's forehead. If only I had come back." Mai quietly watched him. Then she softly asked, "Do you love him?" To nodded through his tears. "More than my own life." "Do you love me?" To looked into Mai's eyes. The answer came without hesitation. "I never stopped. I was a coward. I chose the easy path. I betrayed you. I betrayed our family. There isn't a single day I don't regret it." Mai slowly walked closer. She gently placed one hand upon his shoulder. Her touch was still unnaturally cold. Yet, for the first time, it didn't frighten him. It only filled him with sadness. Mai looked toward the child, then back at To.
Our son has never known his father. He has waited, just as I waited. Tol lowered his head. Fresh tears fell onto the child's blanket. I know, and I would give anything to change what I did. Mai's voice became almost a whisper. You still can. Tol slowly looked up. What do you mean? Mai smiled gently, the kind of smile she had given him the very first day they met. Then she spoke the words that made Tol's heart stop. Come with us. We can finally become the family we were always meant to be. Tol suddenly woke with a violent gasp. His mother was kneeling beside him. She had been trying to wake him for several minutes. Tol, you were talking in your sleep. You kept saying, I'm coming. Tol sat upright, breathing heavily. His arms still felt warm, as though he had truly been holding a child. He slowly looked down. Clutched tightly against his chest was a small blue cloth. The same blue cloth Mai had wrapped around their baby in every dream. Tol stared at it in horror. He knew, without anyone telling him, the time he had left was growing very short. To never told his parents about the blue cloth. He quietly folded it and hid it beneath his sleeping mat. But every time he looked at it, a deep sorrow filled his heart. It was no longer just a dream. Something had crossed over. Within days, Tu became too weak to stand. The strong young man who once climbed mountains and hunted through dense forests could no longer walk across his own room. His breathing became shallow, his voice barely a whisper. His mother never left his side. Every morning, she wiped the sweat from his forehead. Every night, she prayed that the ancestors would spare her only son. His father sat quietly outside the house. He rarely spoke. Sometimes, the strongest men cry where no one can see them. The village shaman returned one final time. He knelt beside Tu. He gently took the young man's hand, then quietly asked, Tell me honestly, has she continued to visit you? Tu slowly nodded. Every night. Does she still carry the child? Tu closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his face. Yes. The shaman lowered his head. He remained silent for several moments. Then he softly asked, And now, what does she ask of you? Tu stared toward the doorway. His eyes slowly filled with tears. She doesn't threaten me. She doesn't frighten me. She only says, Come home. The shaman closed his eyes. He already knew the calling had begun. That evening, as the sun slowly disappeared behind the mountains, Tu asked his parents for one final favor. I want to go outside. His father looked confused. You can barely breathe. You should stay in bed. Tu gently shook his head. Please, I want to see the sunset one last time. Together, his parents carefully carried him outside. They placed him beneath the large tree beside their home, the same place where Tu had often rested as a child. The mountains glowed with the colors of dusk, orange, gold, deep crimson. The wind carried the scent of bamboo and distant rain. Tu smiled faintly. I never realized how beautiful home was. As darkness slowly settled over the valley, Tu's breathing became slower. His mother held one of his hands. His father held the other. Neither wanted to let go. Then, Tu suddenly looked toward the village path. His eyes widened. He smiled. A genuine smile. The first one anyone had seen in many weeks. Mai. His parents turned. The path was empty. There was no one there, only darkness. But Tu continued smiling. They're here, he whispered. Mai, and our son. Tears streamed down his mother's face. She held him tighter. "There is no one there, my son. Please, stay with us." Tu slowly shook his head. "They've come to take me home." Then, for just a brief moment, the evening breeze stopped. The bamboo leaves became perfectly still. Even the crickets fell silent. Tu slowly reached one trembling hand toward the empty path, as though someone had reached back. His fingers gently closed around unseen hands, one large, one very small. A peaceful smile spread across his face. His breathing became slower, then slower still. His final words were barely audible. "I'm coming, my family." With one final breath, Tu closed his eyes and never opened them again. At that exact moment, a warm breeze passed through the village. The bamboo began rustling once more. The crickets started singing again. It was as though nature itself had been holding its breath. But before anyone spoke, Tu's mother looked toward the distant mountain trail. For only a heartbeat, she thought she saw 3 figures walking away together beneath the moonlight. A young man, a young woman, and between them, a small child holding both of their hands. She blinked and they were gone.
The elder remained silent for a long time. The fire between us crackled softly. No one spoke, no one moved. Only the sound of the night filled the silence. Finally, the old man looked up at me. His eyes were filled with both sadness and wisdom. He quietly asked, "Do you understand now why our ancestors taught us to guard our words?" I nodded, but he continued, "No, I don't think you do." He reached over and placed his weathered hand on my shoulder. When you truly love someone, you are not only joining your lives, you are joining your spirits. You are placing your trust inside another person's heart. And when you make a promise, especially a promise before heaven, never speak those words lightly, because your tongue can bind your soul. He stared into the fire, then softly said, "Tu wasn't taken because Mai hated him. He wasn't taken because she wanted revenge. He was taken because he made a promise that he himself believed. When he abandoned Mai, he broke more than her heart. He broke the bond he had asked heaven to witness." The old man sighed. Mai never stopped loving him, even after death. And Tu, in the end, never stopped loving Mai. He simply realized it far too late. The elder slowly stood, looking toward the dark mountains in the distance. Then he spoke the words, "I have never forgotten." If your heart belongs to someone, be honest. If you no longer love them, tell them. It may break their heart, but the truth is kinder than betrayal. Never make promises you do not intend to keep. Never use love to satisfy your own desires. And never walk away without giving the other person the truth. The fire slowly burned lower. The elder picked up another piece of wood and gently placed it onto the flames. Sparks drifted into the night sky. He smiled sadly. This story has been told by Hmong elders for generations. Whether every detail happened exactly as it was told, only the ancestors know. But the lesson has never changed. A broken heart can leave wounds that neither time nor death can easily heal. So if you ever find someone who gives you their trust, their future, their heart, protect it, honor it. And if you cannot, have the courage to tell them the truth. Because sometimes the promises we break continue echoing long after our voices have fallen silent. And on quiet nights, when the wind moves gently through the bamboo, some of the elders still say, if you listen carefully, you might hear a young mother, a young father, and the laughter of the child who finally found both of them. Whether that is only an old legend or something more, I'll leave that for you to decide.